Hello everybody and welcome to yet another review for Whose Line Is It Anyway? And this time around we shall be looking at the first episode of the first season of the American version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? So let's get started! The improvisers that were in the show this time around, it's Greg Proops, Wayne Brady, Colin Macri, Ryan Stiles, and of course Drew Carey as the new host and Laura Hall on the piano. As the first episode of the first season, it establishes a couple of things for the show. The first thing it establishes is that the list of players is not going to change all that much. Generally speaking, it will be pretty much always Wayne, Colin, Ryan, and the fourth person. This time around, it's Greg. For the fourth person, the show is not all that nice, unfortunately, because most of the time they have to play guessing games. For example, Let's Make a Date or Party Quirks, both of which were in this episode actually. And they almost always are the people guessing, so they don't even get to perform. They have a little bit of an advantage if they are good at singing games, but because they can shine in those, but if they are not singing performers, they are kind of screwed. One of the very few exceptions to that rule is Greg, who doesn't really do singing games, but he, just by the virtue of being Greg Proops, he is amazing anyway. So yeah, that's the first thing this first episode establishes. Another thing is that we have a new host, Drew Carey, whose style is a little bit different from Clive's. I can't say if it's better or worse, it's just different. I would say that Clive was more snarky, for example, like Greg. On the other hand, Drew is a much better target for the performers to make fun of, so he's a good joke and he's a very good sport about it as well. Another thing that this show establishes is that, I know it happened before in the UK version quite often, but this first episode just shows it so wonderfully. It's not the points that don't matter in this show, it's the personal space. It doesn't exist. Not in the world of Whose Line Is It Anyway, at least. It's just something nobody knows about. And this first episode is also a very good example of why there are so many Slash fans in the fandom, because, well, yeah, there is Slash in almost every game that they play. But I'll talk about it more with each individual game. So let's look at the games. The first game they played was Let's Make a Date, and as I said before, the unfortunate fourth-seater usually has to guess. In this case it was Greg. So the other ones and their quirks. We had Wayne, who was an old blues player, Colin, who was an excitable dog, and Ryan, who was an auctioneer. There is a little bit of Slash even in this game, mostly thanks to Greg and Colin, especially Greg's line, which is pretty much the first question he gives to Wayne. If I was a turkey, what would you stuff me with? Well, I will let you draw your own conclusions with that. And when it comes to Colin, he played it perfectly as an excitable dog, but there was just so much tongue action. Oh my goodness, I need a brain scrubber. Also, Ryan's contribution was very interesting. For one question, as an auctioneer, he was saying, I want to sleep with you once, I want to sleep with you twice, and so on. So, yeah. It was quite a funny game because the quirks were not too complicated, but still sort of okay, and they were performing them very well, quite funnily. And Greg was very good at guessing who they were, so I would say it was a fine game. It was definitely not the best Let's Make a Date, but it wasn't worst by any stretch of the imagination. The next game was sound effects, and because we're early in the show, it's still Ryan doing the sounds and Colin miming. The theme was ambulance driver on his first emergency call. Ryan is, as most of you know, pretty good at making the sound effects, and Colin is perfect at miming, so it was a funny game. Nothing in particular stood out to me, except the fact that Colin kind of likes killing imaginary animals, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, it was a good game. Once again, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't bad either, so it's just somewhere in the middle. The third game was Hats, which is a game I personally love because it's always funny. It's very, very quick. I have no idea where they get the hats and other props from, but well done to those poor people who have to get a hang of them. But yeah, the comedians generally just run with it and have a blast. And once again, lots of innuendos because the game requires it. Bit of slash and just, well, six great individuals. I particularly like Colin's hat, one of the first one he put on, to which he said, just use your imagination, which was perfect because all of us are very, very dirty-minded and we got it in one. I also loved Ryan's I'd like to take you out for a few drinks, but I'm a minor comment because, well, yeah, I just love when there's some play with the language, which thankfully English has lots of, so that was perfect. I have to say, though, that it wasn't Greg's best game. He did have a few things, but he wasn't that particularly funny, and I think that the other ones had more ideas, so I would say that it's Greg's weaker round. It wasn't a bad round, just weaker. But I really loved the game of hats. Next came Greatest Hits, which unfortunately for Greg, he didn't get to play at all because he doesn't do in the American version. He doesn't do all that many singing games, and well, it's generally Colin and Ryan selling you the CD collection anyway. So Greg didn't get to play. He did get points for it though, thanks to Drew, but I'll get to that in a second. As for the songs, they did 3 of them because they were fairly short. The first one, the theme was accounting. The first song was Disco Hit, Divorceirs, and with this one I particularly loved Wayne's panicky YMCA dance because he just... I understand it, it's very, very difficult to focus on singing it well, on spelling the word correctly, and on miming the letters and dancing as the letters as you go on. So yeah, it's just him flailing about and it's amazing. The second song was a swing number, Your Love Has Bankrupted Me, even though Wayne sings it a little bit differently, but I mean, come on. He is enough to work with, so if he changes the text a little bit, not a problem. And the third one was a rock and roll hit, Deduct This. I do have to admit that I enjoy it much more if it's Wayne and someone singing, not just Wayne, but he's very talented, very, very quick with the lyrics. A lot of the songs that he sang in this episode were very, very funny. And especially when you mix them together with his dancing and with his facial expressions and everything, it was great. And also Laura Hall, I think that very, very well with the styles and playing them accordingly. The next game was Party Quirks, and as I mentioned before, the fourth seater has to guess. So Greg was the one guessing, but even though he didn't get to do too much, he still managed to put in a few jokes of his own, especially Spiky Spice, which became quite a beloved nickname for him, so yeah, well done with that. Wayne was in a slow-motion fight scene. I think he did it well, but it wasn't particularly remarkable. Colin was an accident-prone circus performer. Once again, he did it well, but the star of this game, by the virtue of his quirk, was Ryan as a foal being born, and especially his version of it, when we truly did see getting him born, and Colin pretty much giving the birth, which was an amazing scene, but unfortunately you cannot unsee what you've once seen, and this game and that particular moment counts for that. But yeah, this is the reason why Drew gave Ryan the nickname Ryan Anything for a Laugh Styles, which is incredibly fitting. It was a very memorable game and so much fun. No matter how many times I see it, I still laugh. So yeah. The winner of this episode was Wayne, but, well, who cares? In later episodes, the winner usually didn't get to play the game. This time around, Wayne did. Colin was the one who set it out, because, generally speaking, the last game is with Drew. This time around, they did Foreign Film Dub, which is, well, seeing as I'm a foreigner, English is not my first language, I love this game because of that reason. It doesn't really matter what they say in the in the foreign language, which in this episode was Farsi. The funny part comes with the translation. Ryan, as usual, was translating for Drew, and Greg was translating for Wayne. The show, or whatever they were performing, was called Vanished on the Breezes. It was quite funny. It was nice seeing them struggling with the language. I mean, come on, nobody expects them to speak it, and to be honest, nobody expects them to be even close to how the language sounds, but my goodness, they were trying, and bonus points for being able to pronounce ch so nicely, because I know that for English-speaking people it's not all that easy, at least for some of them, so yeah, well done there. They were definitely having a blast with pronunciation and with making crazy sounds in Farsi and in the translation as well. So yeah. I also very much enjoyed, even though once again what you saw you cannot unsee, Drew's dancing, which involved a kind of shimmy in his lower regions. It wasn't fully there, but it was enough, and I'm not sure I will be able to sleep well tonight. But yeah. As for the audience, I have to say, well, the American audience does have a few advantages to the British audience. First of all, they already have a few seasons of the British version, one of which, or at least one of which, was shot in USA. So the audience is more familiar with the show, is more familiar with how it goes, what they have to do. I think thanks to that, they were fairly quick, and they were giving quite a lot of suggestions. It wasn't just one or two people shouting. Whether the suggestions were great or not, doesn't matter. You don't need a perfect suggestion to make a funny show, even though it helps. So I would say that the audience was pretty damn good. As for the final notes, I definitely enjoyed the banter between the comedians, especially Drew and Ryan, because, oh my god, poor Drew. Ryan is always making fun of him, and making fun of the Drew Carey show, and making fun of how we got on the show, especially after the foal being born. A game. But what I really enjoyed was the moment of Drew seducing Greg with a very sultry voice saying, "That's right, baby, see me in my trailer," after, believe it or not, Greatest Hits, which Greg didn't even perform in. There was just something about the way he tapped his toes, as Drew told us. So yeah, well, like I said, if Slash hadn't been born during the UK version, it definitely bloomed in this one, because, oh my god, just this episode has so many slashy moments, it's not true, even. I know they do not have too many women on the show, but still, they run with it, and you can see that they are just having fun with it. It's as funny to them as it's to us. One more thing that I noticed, there was no credits reading. I don't know why, because later on they did it even in the American version, but yes, so that's a little bit different this time around. Nobody read it. Maybe because it was the first show, I do not know. Final thoughts on the episode as a whole. I think it was a very, very good episode. They changed games quite nicely. It was funny. The performers, they already know each other very well. Some of them had worked together for a very long time when they shot this episode, so it's clear that they know what to do, how to do it, and how to do it well. So it was definitely funny. There wasn't a dull moment in any of the games, even in the ones that weren't incredibly funny. They were still at least okay. So for a first episode, it was great, and for an episode in general, I think it was pretty damn good. So yeah, I give it quite a very good rating for an episode. And that's pretty much it from me. I'll see you, or at least you will hear me, with with the next episode, even if it's American Whose Line Is It Anyway, or if it's a different show. I don't know yet, but we will see. So yeah, thank you for listening, and see you later. Bye!